One of the questions that I see asked a lot on Facebook groups is, hey, I'm a brand new doula. I have my first shift, postpartum shift with my client tomorrow. What should I do? And of course, my first thought is like, weren't you paying attention in your doula training? But then I remember that when you take a new training, it all feels really overwhelming. There's a lot of information to learn, and then you take it all in and you're so excited. And maybe there's a little bit of a gap before you have that first client, and then you have that first client and you're just like, I forget everything. What am I supposed to do again? And so I thought I would just a quick little video and give you some tips and tidbits of what you might do in a postpartum shift. So I'm talking about postpartum shift for a postpartum doula. I'm not talking about the postpartum shift for a birth doula client, although that's another interesting thing to talk about. In that visit, you want to process the birth and see how they're doing and how they're feeling. And usually that visit's, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours long. When we're talking about a postpartum shift, and I'm talking specifically about day postpartum work, let's talk a little bit about that. So the goal of postpartum work, of course, is to help, and the way I see it, it's my opinion, is to help people transition to parenthood as easily, comfortably, and happily as possible. What that looks like for every family is going to be a little bit different, right? How it looks for one is not necessarily how it looks for someone else. And so I'll tell you what I try to bring into this experience, into this work, is trying to break down my own ideas and judgments of what is needed or necessary, because it's really going to be about that particular family. Now, here's what happens. You show up and you chat and you say, what can I do to help you today? And they don't know what to say, or they don't have anything to say. Often that's because people just feel uncomfortable asking somebody else to do something for them, right? And so part of it is us knowing that and anticipating that. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Screech, let's go back. We walk in the door. First thing that we're going to do, hey, head to the washroom or kitchen or wherever and wash your hands. If you were using public transit, maybe you can change your clothes, right? Right now during COVID, it's when we're recording this video. And then you're going to sit down and you're going to say, tell me what's been happening. Tell me how you're feeling. How has the baby been? How are you? How's your recovery? How, all the questions, right? 10, 15 minutes, you're just going to debrief what's been happening, what's going on. Now, the next thing that I like to do is really just, if they're holding the baby, is just say, hey, do you want me to hold your baby, or do you want to keep holding the baby there? Because the truth is, often the baby has been on them for a really, really long time. And sometimes people just like to be able to take a break and just like, whew, and that feeling of being able to just have their own body for a second for themselves. And so giving them that option right out the gate. I'll tell you that I never do a postpartum shift without my wrap, because then what I like to do is put baby in my wrap. Baby's nice and cozy. And then the focus isn't necessarily, especially I'm sitting there talking to the parent, the focus isn't necessarily now all on the baby, but it allows them to feel like I'm there to listen to them. And I have that freedom because it's not super focused on all my attention looking and holding the baby, but rather I'm able to chat. So I like to do that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what might be helpful for them. If it's a family that doesn't have an easy time expressing what they need you to do, then listen, here's what my goal is. In a typical postpartum shift, I'm usually going to sweep. I'm going to do any dishes that are in there. If the dishwasher's full of clean dishes, I'm going to empty it. If it's full of dirty dishes, I'm going to run it and I'm going to empty it before I leave. If it's bottle-fed baby, I'm going to wash bottles, prepare bottles, sterilize bottles, all that good stuff. And I like to make a meal personally, but I enjoy cooking. It feels easy and comfortable for me. And my superpower is making food from anything. So I can look in the fridge and cupboard and be like, okay, here's the dish I'm going to make tonight. That might not be your superpower, or might not be something you're super keen on. We'll come back to that in a second about food. And that's kind of what I like to do in my day. Load of laundry, a couple loads of laundry while I'm there if there's any to be done. Just tidying up the baby room, bringing out the diapers in the diaper genie or garbages, things like that. All of those things that just the person can then come into their space and just be like, that sigh of relief that they don't have to worry about all of those little tasks, and they get to either just sit calmly with their baby and have some cozy time without that laundry list of things in their mind that feels like it's looming over them, that dinner's ready for that evening. They don't have to worry about that. There's just so many, that just really alleviates so many stresses for a family. So coming back to food. So let's talk a little bit about food. If you aren't someone that likes to cook, then my suggestion is that you talk to them a little bit about what kinds of foods their family likes or doesn't like, and then maybe send them some recipes send them a text with some recipe suggestions, right, of things that you could make, and then they can pick and choose. If they don't have those food items handy, if you're going to be there for several days, then you could get them to agree on 3, 4, 5 meals for however many days you're going to be there. One of your tasks that week could be to go to the grocery store and grab those things for them and bring them home. I personally don't recommend, for a whole lot of reasons, that doulas prepare food at their house and bring it. That's not what we're supposed to be doing here, I don't think. I think maybe making a batch of cookies is one thing, but making someone a meal should be done in their home with their own food and utensils and spices and all of that good stuff, right? The truth is, if they don't have that spice, then maybe that's just not something that they really like. So being creative in how you accomplish that task. The other thing, it could just be things that you can make in bigger batches, maybe a big pot of soup, maybe some lasagna, some casseroles, and things that, especially if it's only a family of maybe 2 adult parents, for example, not a lot of other people, or maybe just the birthing parent on their own, things that you can then portion out into smaller containers and stick in the freezer or in the fridge for them to have at a later time. That's also super helpful. And if you don't cook at all, and I have a couple doulas on my team that just don't like to cook at all, they're just like, Stephanie, tell people I'm not going to be able to cook for them. Well, you know what? You can still help make cooking easier. So maybe it's cutting up some, carrots and some celery, some fruit, some things that, then is easily accessible for them to just grab and snack on. So any ways that, you can make the food easier for them to grab on their own is still helpful. Or maybe helping them get ready for dinner by helping chop things up and prepare, even if you're not going to put the food together yourself. So if you're not a doula who cooks, not the end of the world, right? You'll figure it out. The sun is shining right in my face. I'm going to move over. Oh no, I've got stained glass window and it's doing all kinds of crazy things here today. Oh well. All right, folks, I'm sure you'll tolerate that little bit of sun here for me for a second. Okay, finally, now coming back to the family who doesn't feel comfortable telling you what to do in a day. What I ask them to do after that first visit together, I say, listen, here's a little notepad that I'm going to leave here on the table. I know sometimes people don't like saying like, hey, can you please go do a load of laundry? But what's helpful for me, because I want you to get the most value from my services possible. If you could make a little list here of things, and you can put even a little star next to the things that are like super priority, and you want me to start with those things first, and if I can get to the other things, then great. Then please do that. And just write it down here. And then I know when I show up tomorrow morning where your priorities are and how I can best serve you. And often people who have a hard time saying it verbally have a much easier time writing it down. The other option is for you to prepare various little pack of cards or decks of cards that have all different tasks written on them. And the person can look through the deck every day and then just put out the things that they find most useful. That's typical shift for me. And in a typical 4 or 5 hour shift, I find that I can do some sweeping, some dishes, some laundry, prepare a meal, and hang out with the baby that whole time because I got it in my wrap, remember? Also, maybe they have me bathe the baby in that time. And so sometimes maybe one of those other tasks is going to fall to another time. Always depends on the baby's temperament and personality and how well they do sitting in a wrap, how much other stuff they need. And of course, which I didn't even say, but goes without being said, is education. Our goal is always there to be teaching people anything that they need. It's another thing that I ask them to jot down in between our visits is a list of questions. Why does my baby have this bump? And why is this thing red? And why is the breath doing that? And so jot down all those questions as they come up. We start some education, teaching when they're rested, when they feel ready to absorb that information. Remember that having a baby is very much, we're into this right brain mode. And when we're in right brain, remember our right brain is about our emotions, it's about our feelings, and it's about creativity. It's a time when we're there to cuddle with our baby, and we're programmed to cuddle and love and hug our baby. But we're less receptive to left brain types of things like logical, learning tasks, right? Analytical tasks can all feel different than when we're not in a newly postpartum state. And so trying to educate in a way that's not quite so left brain, that's maybe more demonstrative, and maybe that's more, that can explain things in a more maybe warm and fuzzy way. So just a few tips. I hope that you find that helpful. Good luck.